Hello. Welcome to the nonpartisan educational program entitled League of Women Voters Presents Candidates for Southbury's First Selectman. My name is Yara Burnett, and I'm going to be the moderator for this evening. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization of men and women. We encourage informed and active participation in government. We work to increase understanding of major public policy issues and influence public policy through education and advocacy. Our Southbury chapter has a long history of presenting these nonpartisan candidates' forums and debates. The candidates for First Selectman are Ed Edelson, Democratic incumbent, and Jeff Manville, the Republican challenger. Panelists asking questions are Ms. Paula Van Ness, President and CEO of the Connecticut Community Foundation, and Dr. Jack Zazzaro, President of Tribury Chamber of Commerce and member of the Southbury Economic Development Commission. The program for today will be as follows. Each candidate will have an opening statement of no more than 2 minutes. The order of precedence has been determined by a draw, and Mr. Manville will go first. Following the opening statements, candidates will respond to questions from the two panelists. Candidates and panelists will take turn asking questions, and again, the order was determined by a draw preceding the program. Mr. Edelson will be the first to answer the first question, and the first question will be posed by Ms. Van Ness. Following the questioning, each candidate will have a 2-minute closing statement, and Mr. Manville will be the first one to close. League member Bernadette Way will be the timekeeper. Are we ready? Let's go. Okay. Mr. Manville, your opening statement.
My name is Jeff Manville. I've been a resident of Southbury for 57 years. I was born and raised here, and I've raised my children here. My family background, we've been here since the time of the Buns, and I have a deep history of volunteer service to the town of Southbury for 35 years. I've been asked what my vision of Southbury is, and what I've been telling people, it's not my vision, but it would be the vision of the people of Southbury. Currently, they like the way Southbury is. They like the downtown. They like the rural character, and the many things that have come through Republican majority boards and commissions over the decades. It's my plan to keep working with the boards and commissions that have put these things in place for Southbury, and it has come to be the town that you have come to love and be in, the town I call home, and the town that for generations to come I hope will be my family's home.
Thank you. Mr. Edelson.
Sure, thank you. And first, let me thank Charter Community Television for hosting this panel and broadcasting it in the weeks ahead. I also want to thank the League of Women Voters for taking the initiative to make this panel possible. The League has been a hallmark of our democracy since its founding in 1920. Its Southbury members have played an important role in informing the public prior to many of our municipal elections. Being First Selectman for the past 4 years has been one of the most rewarding and challenging positions I have had. I want to thank the people of Southbury for giving me this opportunity to utilize all that I've learned in my academic and professional life, whether it was in corporate planning, systems analysis, civil and environmental engineering, economics, marketing, public affairs, and general management, and being able to apply it to help improve the quality of life in Southbury. I know I can look back on those 4 years and enumerate important initiatives that would not have happened otherwise. I take a lot of pride in that. Of course, I did not do it alone, and I hope that some of the questions today will help to delineate and describe those accomplishments. In addition to my background and track record, elections should also be about the future. This year, running with a team that includes 3 superbly qualified people for the Board of Selectmen, we've come up with an integrated, comprehensive vision for Southbury's future based on 3 pillars of proactive management, fiscal accountability, and community stewardship. This is a team that has the professional approach, the managerial background, and the intentionality to work collaboratively as the majority of your next Board of Selectmen. I encourage you to learn more at our website. This information panel will show that the clear choice to advance Southbury is to vote for the Advancing Southbury team of Donna Pereira, Justin Betty, Mike Rosen, and myself, Ed Edelson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both of you. Now we're starting with the questions. Ms. Van Ness, you will be the first to ask a question, and it will be addressed to Mr. Edelson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This question, of course, will go to both of you. Why do you believe you are the best person to work both with Democrats and Republicans to advance your agenda? And tell us a little bit about how you go about building those relationships.
90 seconds, correct?
That's the plan.
Right.
Well, I think engagement is the most important thing, and I look forward to opportunities that arise that bring people together. So, for example, we've been having a pretty active debate recently about open space. And we saw people on the Planning Commission saying certain things, but we saw people on the Board of Finance saying other things. And there was an agreement. So I, during the summer, in early August, asked the chairman of those 2 boards and commission to meet with me to discuss what are the issues and how do we move forward. I've done the same thing with the Region 15 when we decided we would go with, or at least explore the area of self-funded insurance, which has saved taxpayers over $1 million per year. But that was the result of many, many meetings with people from Middlebury, Republican-led town, as well as the administration of Region 15. Again, bringing people together, engaging in a discussion of what the issues are, and by building that trust, working forward to a solution. I'm very proud of what I've done at the Southbury Training School, where the town hardly had any relationship with the executive director and staff at the training school. But I've, again, made myself available to have meetings about our common issues that we have by being in the same proximity. And as the executive director over there said, this is quite refreshing to see a first selectman who's willing to become engaged in talking about the future of the training school.
Thank you. Mr. Manville.
Well, I've been here for a long time. My father was a Democrat, my mother was a Republican. I understand both sides of it. I have many friends in Southbury who are Democrats. I don't look towards one party except for leadership on the boards and commissions. I've worked well in the Inland Wetlands Commission with both Democrats and Republicans to come to a solution for environmental purposes to protect our wetlands. And I've also worked in bipartisan committees with other Democrats and Republicans on both sides. So the balance I bring and the family that I have been, I will live with these decisions for many generations. So it's important for me to make sure that I work with these boards and commissions, whether they're Democrat or Republican, in order to ensure a positive outcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Cesaro, the next question will go to Mr. Manville first, and please pose it.
Yes, Jeff. A recent Yukon demographic study has shown a dramatic decrease in the school-age student population and an equally dramatic increase in the senior population that's going to occur quite rapidly in the next 10 years. I'm wondering how we can continue to attract new families to help grow our town and to still serve the elderly at the same time. And as you may know, young families sometimes need more affordable housing, and I know that our neighbor here, Newtown, is addressing some of those issues currently. So I was just wondering what you thought about that.
Well, I would look for statistical analysis on the 10 years of where our population will be, and I would get together with a group of people to determine what those needs were. I've sat on the original Senior Tax Relief Committee in order to keep seniors in their homes. It was beneficial to the town as a whole to keep seniors in their homes because replacement, when they moved, generally brought families to town and an increase in the school. At this point, I still want to keep the seniors in their home wherever possible by keeping taxes under control. Attracting young people to Connecticut is going to be difficult given the current environment in Hartford with the legislature and the governor and his current taxes. So I think it's to a point now where you have to get more involved in the state side of it to get these young people jobs and good paying jobs to attract them to our town.
Thank you very much. Mr. Edelson.
Right. Well, I've been engaged in a number of conversations, especially with Region 15, about changing population, and at the same time working with our senior center, which is seeing this increase in the number of seniors and trying to make sure that we have the right services. Very proud of what we've done in the area of transportation, which is probably the biggest issue for seniors as they get older, and our changes there in creating the position of a transportation coordinator to facilitate all the different transportation options we've had have caused quite an increase or resulted in a tremendous increase in the number of people who can use the transportation systems we provide. But going back to your first question, we have to understand, and nobody, I think, has understood, what caused this shift in population. I continue to believe a lot of it's related to the 2008 financial collapse, and we're still seeing the ripple effects of that here in the northern end of New Haven County. And until our housing market stabilizes, we're going to have some questions about what we should do to respond. No, the housing stock hasn't changed. I think our housing prices are going to continue to go down because basically we're still adjusting. And until people kind of realize, I don't like realizing it, but until we realize what our true market value is. And those prices will come down, I believe, and that might attract families back. But at the same time, your point about Newtown is correct. And I bring it another level, which is talking to young people. I don't think they're interested in what was built 20 years ago. So they're looking for a different housing option.
Thank you very much. Excellent responses. Ms. Van Ness, your question will go to Mr. Edelson. Please go ahead.
I'm wondering if you would describe yourself as an environmentalist. And if so, what are the actions you have taken to put that philosophy and your beliefs into action? And if not, tell us why not.
Well, the term environmentalist is used in a lot of different ways, but I would say that I am a reasonable environmentalist who believes that the environment is not the only attribute that you need to think about. There are many others, but environment is clearly one, especially when you take the long-term view. That's why I'm so excited about the Pope coming to Washington, D.C. to hopefully bring some clarity to this whole question of climate change, which to me is our biggest threat looking forward. But I think my background shows me to be an environmentalist. My position as executive director of Pomperaug River Watershed Coalition gave me an opportunity to come to a very complete understanding of the environment here. Also served with, at the same time as Jeff for a while, on the Inland Wetlands Commission, which gave me another perspective on that. And I go back to my academic years back in the 70s when the environmental movement began. Did a lot of work at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and other national laboratories, specifically on energy and environmental policy. But putting it in action here in Southbury, I think we can look at the improvement in the recycling program. We've reduced our municipal solid waste. We've increased our recycling. We've raised awareness about it. We've bought more open space and identified more open space in the last 4 years than the 4 years before that. And we've restored or made great progress, I would say, at the Southbury Training School in preserving the farmlands up there.
Thank you very much. Mr. Manville.
Thank you. Well, as far as being an environmentalist, I've served on the Inland Wetlands Commission for, I think it's 17 years. My family has owned a farm in Southbury. We choose not to sell or develop. My parents did not choose to do that. The leadership was from the Republican Party when they bought 750 acres off the open market. That was the original, the beginning of environmental protection of farmlands and open space. They did this for a number of reasons, part of which was to take the burden off of the road called River Road, which is being talked about rebuilding to the tune of $5 to $15 million. It wasn't just an environmental thing, it was an economic reason to do that. So being part of RUPAC is another committee that I'm part of that I've been actively searching out and working with them in order to find, get the farmlands preserved. And I know how important it is, and I think the Republican Party realized this before it became in vogue.
Thank you very much. Dr. Cesaro. Next question will actually go to Mr. Manville again.
Yes. Jeff, concerning our police department, what is your position on having a self-governed local police department? It seems like we may have an issue with retention of our best officers after the expense of training them, and especially with the increased local cost to the state trooper resident. I'm concerned that perhaps there's a way to improve the overall quality of our police department.
Well, we are very close to a tipping point, and I wouldn't make that decision until we did the economic cost, and that would be a pretty investigative situation. We really need to look at that closely. But the change in our demographics from the with more elderly in our community, statistically it shows that with the average age of a population going up, it tends to decrease the amount of crime that you have in the age groups that are out there. So I would look to see statistically again what kind of crime statistics we should see changing in the next 5 years or 10 years and make a long-range plan on how to address that. Retaining our police officers obviously is a difficult situation, but by the same token, going to a full police department could become very expensive, and I don't have any set answer for that until we actually sit down and look at the numbers.
Thank you very much. Mr. Edelson.
Yes, well, let me just correct one thing that Jeff said in the case of Southbury, which is although we have a population in Heritage Village that many would say is 55 and over and maybe growing, what we're seeing, again, possibly as a result of the 2008 financial collapse, is a lot of younger people moving in with their parents. And so the nature of crime in Heritage Village has changed dramatically over the last 3 or 4 years because we're bringing in younger people who are living with their parents. And that's one of the reasons I'm very proud of the fact that we came up with a new approach, which we call the Community Resource Officer, which has been very well received as a way to respond to changing situations in the village. But in terms of our own police force, I think it's once again time that we did that study. I agree with Jeff, you need to look at the numbers. I'm very proud of the fact that last week I had Colonel Meraviglia, who is now the colonel, the head policeman of the state police force, down to have a conversation about where we are, because we cannot deny that the resident trooper program has gone up in cost fairly dramatically. I've looked at other ways to address the issues that I believe we have in the police force, which is what I would call span of control with the way we're structured. So I think there are other things we need to look at that might be in between going to an independent police force versus where we are today. But clearly I think it's time for a study. I would say that the prior administrations flubbed it when they tried to have a study or put forward a resolution for review by the people of Southbury, and had the support of just about every part of the government, but they weren't able to get it passed. And that's because they didn't inform the public well enough.
Thank you very much. Next question, Ms. Van Ness.
I'd like to shift.
And to Mr. Edelson.
Yes, I'd like to shift gears a little bit and talk to you in a more personal way. Here's my question. Please describe the most recent case that you can think of where in your public life you had to change your mind or change a position on something. What did you do?
Wow, I guess I put a lot of those out of my mind. That's the way I get through it.
Well said.
And unfortunately, a number of the issues that come to mind are personnel issues, where I've judged people one way and ended up to be wrong about that. And I typically don't like to talk about other people in public, but I would say one that that sort of comes to mind related is the unfortunate situation where we seized 31 dogs. If I could take that back, I think I would. There's a couple of decisions that were made along the way. But clearly we were faced with a picture of a very hurting group of animals that were being kept inside a house. And we all wanted to do the right thing on behalf of both the people living there and the animals themselves. It was a very difficult situation. Again, I brought a team together that included not only our police, our animal control people, our senior services and social services people, people for protection of the elderly, to try to make a decision. And at times I said we shouldn't get involved, but then I was presented with enough evidence that I said, I don't think I can say no, we really do need to take action. And we ended up with 31 dogs to take care of that ended up to be politically for me and economically for the town a very difficult task to control.
Thank you so much. That was an interesting experience. Mr. Manville.
Could you repeat the
Sure.
please?
Please describe a recent case in your public life in which you changed your mind, changed your position on something, and then how did you handle that?
I don't know. I have to say for Ed, I'm sure he's had to make a lot of these public decisions, and in any administration or an individual with that many in the public, you would have to have some kind of an issue where you it's not personal, it just happens. I mean, you try to make the best decisions you can. In my public comments and situations, I really don't have anything that I can think of that would be I'd like to take back. I don't believe, to be honest with you.
You haven't had to change your position?
No.
Okay, do you wish to add anything? You have a little time left over?
No.
No? That's fine. Thank you very much. Dr. Cesaro, to Mr. Manville. Next question.
Yes, Mr. Manville. Everyone who I speak to who lives in Southbury loves it and really does not want change. But as we know, change is inevitable. And we need to retain this beautiful town, this beautiful character, this beautiful ruralness, but we need to continue to grow. Our population has hit 20,000, which is kind of a milestone, and we need to grow. We're on 84, and we need to grow our community, we need to grow our economy, we need to grow our tax base. So how can we maintain what we love and continue to grow and prosper?
Well, through the boards and commissions over the years, the decades, they have performed very well. They have done their due diligence. They have come up with a conservation plan of development, which has been working quite well. Southbury, I'm saying we need to preserve our character while making progress. Progress is always going to come. We need to look towards new ideas and new ways. But we really need to preserve what the people of Southbury came here for. I'd like to see some of the local economic development increase. I've had conversations with a few people with the arts, possibly if we could get empty store owners to get the arts into their empty buildings for drawing the artists in that are local, maybe getting more vibrant downtown and get more exposure for the individual owners downtown. As Ed said, a lot of young people are looking for something different that want to come to town. And I know with my own children, it's the arts, it's dining, things of this nature that they're looking for.
Thank you very much. Mr. Edelson.
So I think I'll start with Bob Dylan said, "He not busy born, he is busy dying." And the other comment that comes to mind is if you want things to stay the way they are, something's going to have to change, or something's going to have to change. I think the movie theater is a great example of that. We heard a lot of people just so upset about what the movie theater would do, And then once it passed, everybody said to me, so when's the movie theater coming? But Kevin Bennett will tell you that's the same thing that happened with Pomperog Office Park. When that was built, people thought that's the end of Southbury. So people are resistant to change. We want to make good changes. We want to make changes that make sense, but we can't be trying to just stop time. That's not appropriate either. And I think another good example, going back to the police, we have to have a police force that responds to the changing criminal climate. And our advantage of being on 84 is also one of our biggest vulnerabilities, and we can't ignore that. And if you read the paper, you see a lot of the people who are being pulled over are not from Southbury. They're people coming through the area. So, but it goes right to I think what Jeff said, right to the heart of it. We've got to look deep and say, what is it that is the true character of Southbury that we want to retain? I would want to add, and I think my whole team of Advancing Southbury would be behind me on this, is the critical importance of Region 15, that many people, many people move here for that particular reason. And it is one of the things that keeps our property values up, is the quality of that school system. So we shouldn't walk away from that. We should continue to support that to make sure it stays vibrant and attractive.
Thank you very much, Ms. Van Ness. And the question goes to Mr. Edelson.
What are your thoughts about the nonprofit organizations that serve the Southbury area? And how do you think the town, and specifically the First Selectman, can help those organizations do the best possible job of serving the community?
Well, I want to say that they are critical to the quality of life that we have. And I have tried very hard to support them in lots of different ways. Southbury Women's Club came to me and said, you know, we can't find a place to meet consistently. And I said, we will work to find you space at the town hall so that you've got a place to meet. Because you're an important part of our community. I'm very excited about what we did with the volunteer fair. It's the second year in a row. It's done wonders for organizations to identify new volunteers, and clearly all those nonprofits do run on volunteer help. So I think the volunteer fair day was a tremendous boost for the almost 60 organizations that came out, and we continue to hear great things from all of them. The other one that comes to mind is how I try to bring these groups in for conversations to help us, whether it's the Southbury Land Trust, the Pomperog River Watershed Coalition, the Audubon Center. We've worked on environmental awareness, we've worked together on the Greenway, and we've worked together to review the current situation of water pollution and issues that might lead to water pollution in our community with those different groups. So I think, again, it's about engagement, showing them that Town Hall is open to them, Town Hall wants to work with them, and looking for opportunities to work together. I throw in one other group that's one of my favorites, which is the Youth Wildlife and Recycling Foundation, a group of young women who've come to our Board of Selectmen meetings to explain the importance of recycling.
Thank you so much. All right. Actually, we're coming to the last question.
You still need to answer. Mr. Hamel needs to answer.
Oh, right.
Forgive me.
That's
Forgive me.
okay.
I see that. I don't have a check mark next to your name. Please take as much time as you need.
Southbury, having grown up in Southbury, it's always been the volunteers who have been the cornerstone of our town. I was a volunteer fireman for almost 17 years, and that's where I learned the value of volunteering and the importance of the volunteers in Southbury. My mother started the Southbury celebration with Brian Jones. I've built the soccer fields on East Flat Hill. And I really believe that in our town, in order for our taxes and the type of community we want to be, the importance of the volunteers is incredible. Groups that are grassroots groups like SMART, where they're working towards making the situations in the schools with Middlebury, is a great organization. So to me, it's better to keep these organizations in the hands of volunteers for their services, and it doesn't get political that way.
Thank you very much, and my apologies again.
That's fine.
Dr. Cesaro, to Mr. Manville. I'll mend my ways here.
Jeff, I'm wondering how we can continue to attract new businesses and support the businesses that we do have. Also, how can we continue to attract consumers as Southbury becomes more of a destination?
Given we need to have a more friendly form of getting businesses approved in town. Many times people are expressing difficulty getting through the processes. And so I would say that one thing would be to make an easier way for our, or helpful way for our new business to get started. The boards and commissions need to do their job. It's important that they do, whether it's the movie theater or a new restaurant. But to attract new businesses, we need to grow the state economy. Until the state economy improves, and we're very just about last on the list in the U.S., until we get it easier for the businesses to do business and come in here and be profitable, I think that's going to be a very difficult situation.
All right. Mr. Edelson.
Well, I think there's a good point in there, but I would point out a comment the governor made when I asked him a question, so what can towns and cities do to help the state grow? And his first response was, we need to let businesses know whether or not they can locate in a business. Every business that comes to Connecticut has to be in a town and has to go through the planning and zoning process. And if every town draws them through like we did with the movie theater, $500,000 spent on just trying to get through planning, that's not right. Now, I've tried to bring our land use departments together to say we need to streamline this. We need to become more customer friendly. We need to look at other communities to see what they've done to expedite the process or simplify the process is what I should say. And I think we're making some progress there, trying to get them to work more as a team than a group of separate silos that say, well, you meet with me, and then when I'm done with you, then you meet with the next one, and then you might have to come back. And Jeff and I actually on wetlands, we went through some experiences of that I said, this is just silly what we force a developer to do, to sort of play ping pong, bouncing back and forth between commissions. It's not fair, and that's where you need the town to speak with one voice. But I believe mostly that what attracts people, businesses to a community is the people who live there. And that's why our job as the town is to make it an attractive place to look. When I started as first selectman 4 years ago, the Community House Park had 2 basketball hoops.
I'm sorry.
Yep. I didn't see the 30. I'm sorry.
The tyranny of the 90 seconds. Well, we're coming to our closing statements. And I believe, Mr. Manville, you're it. 2-minute closing statement, followed by Mr. Edelson.
I'd just like to mention, I want to say thank you to the League of Women Voters for doing this, and our lovely moderator.
Who makes mistakes?
That's fine. And our panelists. I appreciate you taking the time during the day to come out, and Charter Communications for doing this. I'm proud of the team that the Republican caucus has put together for me. We have a municipal lawyer who can bring a great deal of legal advice to the board. We have that's Jason Bucksbaum. We have a paralegal with a land use attorney who has worked through 2 administrations and knows the workings of the town and has a great relationship with a lot of the different boards and commissions, ready to work. And then we have George Bertram, who is both an engineer and has an MBA and can disseminate a lot of information. So the team is a very strong team. I bring to the team a historical knowledge of how Southbury got to where it is today. I'm not looking to turn anything back or change anything back. I'm very proud of Southbury and who we've become. I love it in Southbury, and I'm hoping to have my grandchildren come here and be educated in the schools, same as I was, and my children were, and my father was. And I hope to continue that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Edelson.
Sure. I also want to thank my opponent for being here today, as well as the League and our two great panelists, Paula and Jack. Thank you very much for being here. I would like to finish up my little story there.
Sorry.
That's okay. Time is time. But because my opponent has said that things were in pretty good shape and have been in pretty good shape. But again, when I arrived 4 years ago, Community House Park had a basketball hoop or a basketball court. One was just a pole with no backboard. The other had a backboard that was rusted out. We now have 4 backboards, 2 beautiful courts over there that we're taking care of. What I found time and time again is things that were being ignored. Same was true at Ballantyne Park. Basketball court there was in disarray. We had a pool, a fabulous facility, but we had provisions that kept people away. Our use of that pool has now gone up by about 40% because we put in things like a place for people to sit, places like, or other things like umbrellas, so people had shade when they wanted to be there, as well as lounge chairs. And so now we're making use of facilities that already existed but were underutilized. But I would like to close by saying that my opponent has indicated his efforts will be in the area of transparency, cooperation, and accountability. That's what he has on his website. And I take a lot of pride in the tremendous strides we've made in all those areas in the last 4 years under my leadership. Our meetings now are of the Board of Selectmen, and even the Board of Finance has followed our lead to have meeting materials available to the public before the meeting. And they can actually see what we're doing by viewing the screen. That was not available 4 years ago. As I've mentioned, we have partnerships with so many organizations around town. We meet regularly with the Heritage Village Master Association, the Southbury Training School, Region 15, and I'm very proud of the partnering that I did with the governor to preserve the Southbury farmlands, something that had been in the works for over 20 years that no one had even been able to get the state to do. And now that it's done, everybody says, that's a great idea. Of course, there is always room for improvement. In fact, continuous improvement is the core of my approach to management. But when it comes to transparency, cooperation, and accountability, my track record proves I know how to get it done. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. We're coming to the end of this Southbury Presents program. The candidates, thank you. Panelists, thank you. Certainly thank you to Channel 192. And Bernadette, excellent job of timing. Municipal elections are very important. Your vote really counts. So please vote on November 3rd. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.